Chiamaka thought she had found the perfect man, but she was actually sleeping in a graveyard. This story reminds us that sometimes, the things we pray for are the very things that will haunt sometimes if not careful. The rain at the junction. The rain in Lagos was not just water, it was a physical weight. It hammered against the rusted roofs of Oberland, turning the streets into brown rivers. Among the stranded crowd stood Chiamaka, a young woman whose beauty was often hidden behind the exhaustion of her 9-to-5 job. While others pushed and shoved for the few available buses, a sleek, jet-black Lexus slowed to a crawl beside her. The glass slid down with a silent, expensive hum. "The heavens are angry tonight," the driver said. Chiamaka looked at him. He was striking. His features were carved like a statue from dark ebony, and he wore a white linen shirt that remained impossibly crisp despite the humidity. His name was Chiamaka. He didn't look like a man who belonged in the chaos of a Lagos traffic jam, he looked like a prince from a forgotten era. "Let me take you to your doorstep," he offered. "A flower like you shouldn't be drowned in this storm." Against her better judgment, Chiamaka entered. The car smelled of sandalwood and expensive white lilies. As they drove, Chiamaka spoke with a calm that was almost hypnotic. He didn't ask for her social media, he didn't even ask for her number initially. He simply dropped her off, handed her a silk handkerchief to dry her face, and said, "I will see you again, Chiamaka." The heart doesn't forget its own. 6 months later, the village of Omichi was buzzing. Chiamaka had returned not as a struggling city girl, but as the bride of a man who seemed to breed wealth. Chiamaka was an architect, he claimed, working for high-profile clients in the UK and Dubai. They moved into a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of Lekki. The house was a masterpiece of glass and stone, but as the honeymoon phase faded, Chiamaka began to notice the shadows. "Chiamaka, why are there no clocks in this house?" she asked one evening, noticing the empty spaces on the walls. Chiamaka smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Time is an enemy, my love. Why count the seconds when we have forever?" And then there were the visitors. Or rather, the lack of them. Chiamaka had no friends, no colleagues, and no family. He claimed he was the sole survivor of a tragic family fire. He was a man with no past, only a present that felt cold. Even when they lay together, his skin never seemed to warm up. He was always icy, like a bottle of water pulled from a deep freezer. Chiamaka woke up at precisely 3 a.m. The bed was empty. She walked into the hallway, her bare feet silent on the marble floor. She found the back door standing open. Outside, in the garden, she saw Chiamaka. He was standing perfectly still under the moonlight, his face turned upward. But he wasn't looking at the stars. He was talking. "The time is short," he whispered into the wind. "The bond is holding, but the sun is getting stronger. I need more of the earth's breath to stay." Chiamaka trembled behind the curtain. She watched as a stray dog approached him, barking furiously. Chiamaka simply looked at the animal, and the dog suddenly whimpered, tucked its tail, and ran as if it had seen a demon. When Chiamaka turned back toward the house, his face looked different. Older. More ashen. Disturbed by the secret her husband was keeping, Chiamaka decided to do her own investigation. Chiamaka had mentioned a small village near Enugu called Umuis. She told him she was going to a weekend church retreat, but instead, she boarded a flight to the east. She found Umuis after 3 hours of trekking through dusty roads. When she showed a picture of Chiamaka to the oldest woman in the village, the woman let out a scream and covered her mouth. "Why do you have the face of the dead on your machine?" the old woman hissed. "This is my husband." Chiamaka replied, her heart drumming against her ribs. "We live in Lagos." The woman grabbed Chiamaka's wrist, her grip like iron. "Child, listen to me. That man is Chiamaka Okafor. He was the finest architect in this land. But 5 years ago, On his way to pay the bride price of a girl in the next village, his car plunged into the Oji River. They never found his body, but they found his shoes and his ring. We buried an empty casket for him. The grave in the forest. Chiamaka didn't want to believe it. He is alive. He eats with me. He sleeps with me. He is a walking ghost, the old woman whispered. Sometimes, when a man dies with a heavy heart or a promise unfulfilled, he refuses to go to the land of the ancestors. He finds a place where no one knows him and lives as a man. But he is a thief of life. He is using your warmth to keep his spirit in this world. The woman led Chiamaka to a neglected corner of the village cemetery. There stood a marble tombstone, cracked and covered in moss. Emeka Okafor. 1992 to 2021. May the river give back what it took. Resting on the grave was a fresh bouquet of white lilies, the same flowers that always scented their house. Chiamaka flew back to Lagos that same day, her mind a theater of horrors. She arrived at the mansion at noon. Usually, she wouldn't return until evening, as per Emeka's request. She burst into the master bedroom. The heavy, dark curtains were drawn tight, making the room look like a tomb. Emeka was lying on the bed, his eyes closed. "Emeka," she screamed, her voice cracking. "Wake up." He didn't move. She grabbed the heavy velvet curtains and, with a burst of strength, tore them off the rails. The brilliant, midday Lagos sun flooded the room. A horrific sound filled the air, a sound like meat hitting a hot frying pan. Emeka's eyes snapped open. They weren't brown anymore, they were a milky, haunting white. "No," he howled, his voice sounding like 1,000 echoes. "Chiamaka, close it. I loved you. I just wanted to be a husband." Before her eyes, the skin on his face began to peel away like wet paper. His body didn't bleed, it turned into a grey, volcanic ash. The expensive silk sheets began to sag as the man inside them disintegrated. Within seconds, the screaming stopped. There was nothing left on the bed but a pile of grey dust and a gold wedding band. Chiamaka ran from that house and never looked back. But the tragedy didn't end there. A month later, she went to the doctor because she felt ill. After the test, the doctor walked in with a confused look on his face. "Chiamaka, you are pregnant," the doctor said. "But I've never seen anything like this. Your body temperature is dangerously low, and the ultrasound, the baby has no heartbeat, yet it is growing." Chiamaka sat in the cold clinic room, remembering Emeka's words, "The heart doesn't forget its own." She realized then that the covenant with a ghost is never truly broken by the sun. It is carried in the blood.